What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. Got another video in the works today for you guys. Today we're going to be doing the Black Ops Off-Road Anytime Locker mod for the 2016 to 2023 3rd Gen Tacoma with a factory e-locker. Let's start off by doing a little bit of unboxing and then we're going to walk you guys through an install on my 2017 Off-Road. So everything that we've got, everything that we're gonna need is in this little convenient package. When you open it up, you have a little bit of a user guide with a QR code on there. You get some zip ties. You get this plastic pry tool, so you don't have to worry about buying that. The new button for the Anytime Locker, and of course, the plug and play harness that we're gonna install behind the dash. And yeah, that's just about it. Pretty straightforward kit. Comes in a nice little package, clean box, everything like that. You can get this kit for about 250 bucks right now. And again, pretty straightforward. We've got our harness, all the little accessories, the button, everything we're gonna need to do this install. Let's go ahead and make our way to the truck so we can start taking it apart. All right, I'm crawling under the truck here. Just wanted to show you guys, this is a TRD Off-Road. It's got the factory e-locker, the 8 3/4 inch rear diff. Just make sure when you're buying this, you have to have the Toyota factory e-locker. That is the only system that this is compatible with. TRD Pro, TRD OR, and the Trail Edition, which was a limited release that Toyota did a couple years ago. So make sure you got the right truck, make sure you have the right axle, make sure everything's in line before you buy this guy. Now that we know all that, let's jump to the passenger side and get the install started. Okay, pretty straightforward to start. We're gonna be removing some trim pieces. So first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna take this little kick panel off right here. And then we have this side panel. If we go into the inside of the wheel well right here, there's a little plastic nub, like a little locking nut that holds this piece in there. We're gonna loosen it. We're gonna pop this off and then we're gonna slowly start making our way to take all this stuff off because the harness is back here behind the glove box. So let's knock that out. You have that little retaining clip. Now everything here should be loose. Let's pop that off. Might have to play with it a little bit. It's kind of in there a little tighter than maybe you would like, but okay. All right, there you go. Now we got this other kick panel off. We've got everything exposed here. Now we're gonna move on and take off this panel right here and slowly start what's the word I'm looking for. We're gonna slowly start to expose the nuts that we're looking for. So we're gonna take that provided trim tool, pop it in there. This little piece comes right off. You can see the clips on the back end, just be careful. Then we've got this exposed here, and we can start kind of working our way around everything here and exposing the rest. There you go, this guy, same thing, just pops right off. Got that off. We're exposing some of these bolts here. Next up, I'm gonna go and grab a wrench and start slowly disconnecting these plastic pieces. All right, I realize in the first scene that we did here is a little bit harder to see where some of these smaller pieces came out. You can see it right there. It's pretty straightforward, self-explanatory almost, but we took everything out of here, cleaned it up a little bit. We got rid of this little storage organizer thing that I have. Now we've exposed a lot of the other bolt heads. You are gonna need a 10mm socket and a Phillips head screwdriver. So to begin, there are 1, 2, and then 3. I don't know if you guys can see this one back here. There are 3 bolts that we're gonna need to remove. So let's get those guys off. All right, after a whole lot of finagling, we got this off. Be careful, there is a harness right here. You don't want to overstretch that or damage that. Looks like it's a part of like the HVAC or something like that, so be mindful of that. As you guys could see, I had to screw around with this a little bit. There are these little pressure clips in there. You obviously don't want to pull too hard so you don't break anything, but now that we've got this lower portion removed, it looks like we've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 or 8 little screws that are in here. We're gonna loosen all of those, and then this entire glove box should pop out, and we will have really easy access to the harnesses, which are right here without the glove box in place. So let's get this guy off. 1, 2, 3. I forgot to mention, if you're going to be doing this, obviously any kind of electronic stuff, disconnect your battery just in case. You never know what could happen. You definitely don't want to fry anything or set an airbag off while you're here. Okay. You could also do this, I think in Chris's post, these are an 8mm or something like that. So you can either use a Phillips head or you can use an Allen head, or I'm sorry, not an Allen head, a socket. Again, carefully remove all this. Can be a little bit tedious, but with some patience, hopefully we don't break anything here. There we go. Look at that. There's our glove box. As you can see, we've got everything exposed here. Let me reset the camera so we have a little bit better angle. We got to plug the harness in, run the new switch, put everything back together, and we're going to be pretty much done. All right, so the first time I did this, I was blocking the video half the time. So let's do this again. Right here, what you've got exposed now, which you don't obviously have to take all this stuff apart to get to it, is the cabin air filter. If you guys have never seen it before, super simple maintenance mod. Don't pay the dealer to do this. Just buy the filter, swap it out yourself. Again, there's access through the glove box typically. So I'll put a link to a post we wrote for that before. I did a step-by-step on how to swap your cabin air filter. But anyway, back to the locker mod. The four-wheel drive and the locker module is right here. Don't touch these, don't touch these. I've already got these two harnesses loosened. So basically you pull out the top one, pull out the bottom one. Obviously be very careful not to break anything. And then all you have to do, it's kind of hard to screw up because it only goes in one place. You're gonna put the male and female ends where they need to go to interrupt the factory harness. And then you'll see the, looks like a little relay control module. And then the other end of the harness has the switch on it. And we're going to feed that over to the other side of the truck, to the left of the steering column, but really it can go in any empty spot. And we have seen people also replace the factory button up in the top of the headliner. You just have to maintain the original button connected in this kit. So you got to figure out a way to hide it, but we can touch on that more later. But anyway, all we got to do is plug in all these different ends. So this kit, this harness, you're gonna plug this guy in the right direction. Cool, so that's locked in there now. Let me make sure I have this going the right way. Okay, it only goes one way. So we got one connected there, and then we've got the other end that we're going to connect right here. So now we're gonna carefully, so we don't screw up any wires or unplug anything by accident. It's a little bit tight working in here, but we're gonna plug that lower one back in. All right, that's installed, and then we're gonna plug in the top one. Heard an audible click with both of them, and really that's pretty much it. I mean, once you've done that, it's as plug and play as it gets. We're gonna turn the truck on real quick, or at least give it some accessory power. All right, so we heard some clicking. Let's see, let's hit this button. All right, so as you can see, it's flashing. That means we've got power. Basically, when the e-locker is actually engaged, you might need to move around a little bit. This is going to illuminate entirely the whole little lightning bolt here when it's actually engaged, and that's how you know whether or not your rear diff locker is on. So we can turn that off. Now we're gonna turn the truck off, and we're basically done. So, as usual, something always goes a little bit wrong, and I'm doing the install, tagging Black Ops. I end up getting everything installed and wired over here on the dash, where the button doesn't technically fit in the empty slot because it's the one slot that's taller than all the other ones. So basically they were like, hey, ideally you don't want a dead button, you don't want two buttons. You should route the harness, which is long enough, to the top of the console and have the button in the factory location. So fast forward to today, I'm going to take everything apart again, and then I'll meet you guys over there at the A-pillar and the headliner when I start to take everything apart and feed that harness into the factory e-locker button location. So yeah, follow along. Pretty standard as far as install goes. Something always goes wrong. No fault of Black Ops, definitely on me. It works, but we want OEM fit and finish, and we want you guys to have an install video that makes sense. I have tested the locker since. It works. 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, high, low, everything. So it's awesome. It works, but let's disassemble the dash. And like I said, I'll meet you guys on the other side so you can see how to route that stuff. And we've got everything disassembled again. First step is going to be find the access points for being able to pry this guy off. I'm assuming that the handle, which is screwed in here, is going to interfere. So I'm getting my pry tool in there to expose the bolts. Try not to damage your interior when you do this. All right, that's going to expose these two 10mm. And we're gonna take this handle off. Speaking of grab handles, someone tell me why Toyota never puts one on the driver's side. Somebody needs to make a quality replacement for that guy. Alright, let's see what we're doing here. Alright, that was a lot easier than I thought it was gonna be. So it's sitting in there, but it looks like those 10mm are doing the majority of the work. Let's pop the console out, a little bit of light pressure, and it should release. Let's just get this unplugged so it's not dangling. And let's see what we gotta do here to get behind the headliner. Looks like there's a little bit of room to kind of pull it back. I'm gonna try to fish it through there without disconnecting anything, and hopefully I can just pop it out right there. So we're gonna take this guy, route it up through here, through the top. All right, cool. Now we've got that guy here. Maybe I'm gonna feed it behind these wires. Okay, we'll zip tie all this stuff later. And it looks like we've got plenty of wire to reach. Let's see what we can do here. Alright, looks like it's going to be easier to disconnect this guy. Where's my screwdriver? We're going to take the visor out. That should help us a little bit. Little harness in there for the light. Disconnect. Let's See if this wants to give a little bit. Oh, perfect. That should be enough room for us to get this guy in here. Okay. Making a little bit of a mess here, but alright, I can see the wire poking through. I'm just gonna stick my hand in here and pull it all the way through. Okay. Retuck this guy in there. And that's looking pretty good. So, I mean, that's about it. We're gonna focus on this button over here, but now you guys can see how to take all this apart. Pretty simple. Couple nuts, bolts, whatever you want to call them. Drop the headliner a little bit and we got our wire right here. So let's refocus over here for the next scene. So right here you can see the factory button. We're just gonna unplug that guy for now so we can kind of feed this through here. Look at that. We'll plug it back in because we do have to retain that factory button. You can't unplug it, you just got to leave it in the off position. If you do it in the on position, then your locker might not work. So you have to keep this, and you have to make sure that you do not leave it on when you tuck it all back in there. So pretty simple. Popped it out. That new one is gonna go bang. Perfect. OEM right there. Okay, so we're going to plug this guy in and we're gonna test it real fast. Let's get some accessory power going. I don't know if you guys can see this, but the light is blinking, so we know it's working. So we can go back to turning that off. Tuck this guy kind of off to the side. Plug this back in. Oh, we gotta stop that beeping. Okay. Alright, let's tuck this back in there. Obviously being conscious of the button. That looks like it went in real easy. One more time, let's test the button to make sure it still works. Yes, it does. So we're all good. At this point, everything is just the reverse of what it took to get here. So I've got it wired up, factory location, problem solved, a little bit of troubleshooting. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap all this up and we'll do some closing thoughts, and that's gonna be it for this one. Now I still gotta go through all my footage, but I don't know what I didn't talk about that I previously did when I shot this, but the last thing to do is some wire management. Take your zip ties all the way up the A-pillar. Make sure everything is nice and buttoned up and out of the way so nothing gets pinched. And then again, we're just gonna make sure everything is secured. Obviously we're gonna test it when we're done, but again, reassemble everything, put it back together the way it was, zip tie all the wires out of the way. That's gonna be it for this one. Again, well, a little bit of extra effort later and we're done. I'm happy I did this. Wasn't ideal having the two buttons on there. In terms of operation, might have touched on this, but let's just go over it real quick. It's gonna work in 2-wheel drive, 4 high, 4 low. In any situation, you obviously don't want to be turning it on when you're on the highway, doing 80 miles an hour, or you know, taking a really aggressive turn or something. It's likely, and I don't know all the technical elements, but the e-locker usually kicks on when it realizes that there's a difference in wheel speed in the rear. Even with the OEM button, this one seems to activate a little bit faster. So I think, at least, you know, the other one, it takes some time sometimes, and you need to make sure that you're in the ideal condition and that the computer has a second to think and basically then allocate power to engage the locker. So it's legit as simple as hit the button, it's gonna blink until it activates. When it activates, this is going to turn a solid color. and you know you've got your e-locker engaged. I think I mentioned it again, that I already tested this a little bit and it worked great in the parking lot. The light turned on. I tested it by making really tight turns, and I could hear the tires squealing and dragging a little bit since the one on the inside was being forced to move at the same speed as the one on the outside, which has a smaller turn radius, I think would be the proper term. But it works. Just got to make sure that you are using it in the proper scenario. You don't want to blow something up in your rear diff because you're using this improperly. Really probably going to limit this to maybe doing some donuts, you know, in two-wheel drive in a snowy parking lot with not a lot of traction, or in the off-road scenario, whether you're going fast or slow. So I think that's about it. As far as the review side of things go, install, relatively straightforward. Just gotta move carefully and cautiously. Don't break any tabs. Be patient if it's your first time doing it. A little bit more than just like a super simple plug and play, but that's only because you have to disassemble some stuff and do a little bit of wire routing and get into here. But I would say it's nothing that you have to be, you know, worried about or concerned that, you know, you're gonna screw something up. It's hard to plug them in, say, to the wrong slot or something like that. But take your time, do a good job, and as far as plug and play goes, this is about as plug and play as it gets. So let's refocus over here on a different angle and we'll touch on a couple other things. So I've heard comments and seen people talking about this mod and saying stuff potentially that, hey, you know, save the money and you can just do this yourself, like the DIY version. And I think at the end of the day, it makes more sense in the older generations trucks that have a little bit less complicated wiring systems. And although I don't really have experience with doing that myself, for example, Brennan put a 3rd gen E-locked axle from Miso's old truck in his 2nd gen Tacoma long travel build after he blew his rear end. And there was a bit of, I guess, Frankenstein wiring that had to be done. Not really, it's not like anything crazy like was jerry-rigged or anything like that. It was done appropriately, but then you potentially have a more difficult time figuring out when something goes wrong and that e-locker doesn't work. So maybe in the older generations, which this product only works on the 3rd gen, I don't know about any backwards compatibility, at least not yet. I think this is going to be the answer. It's 250 bucks. Sometimes they run a sale, so it's a little bit cheaper. And I think for the ease of the kit, the company behind it, I don't think it's worth the hassle of trying to do this yourself and trusting, you know, some random guy on the forum, however knowledgeable he might be. He might know electronics a lot better than you and might make it a little bit simpler than it sounds, potentially more difficult to troubleshoot. If you do something with the wiring, again, I don't know exactly where that was. I'd have to do a little bit more poking around. But in general, I haven't really seen a lot of people doing this in a DIY version, so I don't understand the full complexity of it. I would say for the couple $100 that this kit warrants, I would probably just go this route. I mean, you get to retain the factory button position. It's impossible, nearly impossible to screw up. You got to be patient with the install. It's pretty straightforward. There is no DIY element, you know, from doing it from scratch and sourcing parts or splicing, tapping, shorting stuff out. Here we have something that is and has been compatible with the factory electronics in the system, especially in these newer generation trucks. So again, I would just stick with this. I wouldn't really try to DIY this for the couple $100. Now, if it was like $1,000, okay, maybe we'd be talking, but I think it's well priced. It's a solid kit. You got a company behind it. And yeah, I think it's the superior option versus doing it yourself in a DIY fashion. And I might have mentioned this, but I haven't seen a ton of information on this online, so it's not like there's a perfect guide out there for doing it DIY. So I would go with the Black Ops Off-Road. Plug and play, simple install. What more could you ask for? Okay, that's gonna be it for today's video. As always, we appreciate you guys sticking around, supporting the channel. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you like what you see. We post all sorts of content, not just installs and reviews. We're getting more into trip reports and stuff like that as well, but you guys know the drill. I'll also drop my link to Chris's install and review post in the comments if you like the more, text and photo install guide, and any other relevant links down there. But again, thank you for following along. This is the Black Ops Off-Road Anytime Locker for the 16 to 23 Tacoma. We'll see you next time.